Okay, good. All right, well, everyone, without further ado, we should start this meeting. And Jennifer Mansler is just joining us. All right, so we have a good group of regulars and a few new people, it looks like, as well. And I want to welcome everyone to this October 17th, 2025 Zoom meeting, brainstorming session of the National Health Federation. So just like I usually do at the beginning of each of these events, I give you kind of a report on what's new or what has just happened. And I don't know if a lot of you are aware or not. However, there's been a movement created in Europe where I'm present right at this moment, but there's a movement in Europe called Make Europe Healthy Again. And so MIHA, and their first inaugural meeting that just started day before yesterday. So that was on the 15th of October, and the meeting was held in one of the EU Parliament meeting rooms in Brussels, Belgium. So I was invited to attend. I was invited to speak on behalf of the National Health Federation, briefly, not an extensive speech, but briefly, just like some other people there, including Sayurji and Tia Kasara, and our old friend of NHF, Tom Lawson, who's a German citizen and who was one of our major speakers at our Heilbronn event a year and a half ago in Heilbronn, Germany. In any event, the whole purpose of this meeting is, as you can guess from just the mere fact that I'm talking about, is to launch MIHA in Europe. And so they had called together a whole bunch of people, they being the co-founder or the founder, Dr. Maria Hubmer-Mogg, one of those hyphenated names. And anyway, she was the chairwoman of the meeting, and they had Dr. Robert Malone there. They had Dr. Oh, I should have the papers here, but in any event, they had Aswia Moultra from the UK, and they had the Matthias Desmet was there, and some others. They were the main speakers. And then a number of the rest of us got to speak as well. And it was, I think, a very important meeting. You'll be hearing a lot more about it, but let me let you in on a little secret too. So at the end of the meeting, I went out to dinner late, and coming from the back of the restaurant at this Greek restaurant in the heart of Brussels, I saw this lobbyist for some industry, and I'm trying to remember which one he was with, but I'll track it down. Anyway, he came out from the back of the room of the restaurant, and then about 30 minutes later, the ex-chairman of the Codex Alimentarius Commission, Steve Wern, and his sidekick, the chief Codex officer, Marcus Lipp, came out, and they saw me. I saw them first, but they saw me and talked for a while. So I was curious what kind of meeting was going on between industry and these two, high-powered individuals in the Codex office. So it's funny how fate or happenstance can put you in the path of knowing something that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And it was just very freaking weird as I texted to Kat Carroll after it happened. Anyway, so we'll see a lot more coming. NHF will be a part of it, and so will NHF Sweden and NHF Germany. They'll be parts of this MIHA group, and that's where we're at. So with that, one other quick thing. It looks like our big NHF event in Dallas next year will be held 1 week later. That is the 23rd the 24th and the 25th of April. Now, it's not 100% locked down, but at a meeting I went to about a month ago, I was able to firm up a commitment from Catherine Austin Fitts to speak at our Dallas event next year, provided we were able to move it back 1 week. And so it looks like we've accomplished that. So she'll be one of our major speakers, Catherine Austin Fitts. And if you don't know who she is, look her up, Solari Report. She's fabulous. And every one of her speeches is worth listening to. She's dynamite. With that, I'll turn it over to Charles Frohman, our NHF lobbyist, to introduce our guest speakers. However, before I do, because I always tend to forget this, and I constantly need a reminder, but please, if you aren't already a member of the National Health Federation, you really should be, because we're doing a lot of important work out there and we need your support. We don't get it from, the big corporations or anything, or the government, God forbid, or anything like that. It comes from people like you and me, just, everyday people. So we really need your help. And at the very least, obviously you're on our email list, but get others to join our email list, get other people to join NHF. Anyway, I thank you for attending, and Charles, over to you.
Thanks, Scott. And mark the calendar for late April, because last year's Dallas event was really great. We had so many great speakers: Tom Renz, the COVID whistleblowing lawyer; John Goodman, the father of Health Savings Accounts; Sayer G. Good place to exhibit, network, get good breakout session content. So market calendars for April in Dallas. Plenty of time to raise money and plan for it. So we returned to the vaccine issue this week, but not just vaccines, also geoengineering. And let me just share my screen and set the context here. In chat, by the way, I did put the promo for today, so you can follow along on the guests and topic. Here it is. You're looking at it on the screen. You'll see our speakers, and if you scroll down, you'll see the contents of their presentations, agendas number 1 and 2. And I saw something in chat today that really hit home for me, and that's from the top health guy in Florida, Joseph Ladapo. And I think everyone knows he is promoting an end to vaccine mandates, which really is the least we should expect in a free country, informed consent. And he couched it in this tweet. You can go to X and look at it yourself. Just look up Ladapo. That pediatricians are coercing families to get all the shots for school or get kicked out of their clinic. And to that end, so we were invited, and we signed a joint letter with a bunch of groups. Scott Tips is on here. All the big health freedom groups co-signed this letter to Trump because of his very welcome statements on informed consent. To be more forceful, he spoke about spacing out the vaccines, but that's not going to really help people, especially in those 4 states of New York, California, Connecticut, and Maine, that have lost their religious vaccine exemption. And in the recommendations, this organization, this coalition, including NHF, is calling for leverage from the feds to deny education funds if they discriminate against those filing for religious exemptions from vaccines, calling for enforcement of that religious liberty that we all should enjoy, and to follow Ladapo's recommendation to end mandates. And here are the co-signers down here, including our president, Scott Tips. So that is that letter. I'm sure we'll get some press out of that. It's a big deal. And at our campaigns page, we hope you will click that at thenhf.com/campaigns. And you'll see up top our geoengineering campaign. If you scroll down to, you'll see our campaign against the PrEP Act, which is part of the vaccine debate. Digital ID. I think we're all hearing about how that could be combined with vaccine passports to coerce activity, give us a behavioral score. This is a good one to send to help RFK clean up the environmental vectors, the poisoning of our land, food, water, and medicines. And on the next page is our big bill, the NICE Act. The NICE Act is getting more attention, I think, and possibilities because it's right down here, our right to decline vaccines. Because the Henry Ford Hospital just was exposed for suppressing a comparison study showing chronic disease hits the vaccinated much more so than the unvaccinated. And if you keep going to the third page and so on, you'll see another campaign of ours to restore liability onto pharma for their vaccine injuries. But we have unfinished business with the COVID vaccine, and that's what brings our guest Thomas Baine on today. He's actually an inventor in the energy space, but his chemistry analysis is without peer. It's amazing. He has presented on how exactly the hospital COVID protocol killed with remdesivir. Uh, everyone is everyone who's an expert of the COVID shot argues about the ingredients, what is actually in these gene mutilating injections. So Thomas has his take, and he's going to take us through that. And then, if Susan Clarke is ready after that, we will go into the other vector of what possibly could be depopulation from what they're spraying in the atmosphere. And it's not just jet exhaust. So, with that, Thomas, take it away.
Okay, just before we begin here, how much time do I have exactly? Just for my...
Well, as we discussed, Thomas, if the speakers can limit themselves to 12 minutes each, we can go to Q&A until 1:30 p.m. and go deeper into whatever aspect you want to.
Okay, yeah, Thomas of AlphaOmegaEnergy here. I'm a molecular engineer, reverse engineer. Come from an electrochemistry background, manipulating molecules for the purpose of making new energy and energy-related technologies, of which I've made 5,904 new energy and energy-related technologies so far to date, seemingly more than anybody else in history. So I like working in the molecular space. Everything is molecules, and if you don't understand the molecules, you just don't understand. But yet we have this entire regime of people pushing these pharmaceutical products, which are molecular products, they're molecules, and they're derivatives, all manufactured, chemically produced, and most people are pushing these based on some narrative from the pharmaceutical industry, whether it's the A scam, so what they really want you to do without question, or the B scam, they're mainline pharmaceutical salespeople, gatekeepers, and most people are falling for one or the other. And the celebrity worship and the mass new narrative media has really taken everybody over. So people are still, shockingly, 5 years later, since the first week of January 2020, where I was exposing on independent media that these are depopulation chemical weapons, biological weapons, and showing and teaching how these work. The second that they said that these are ACE2 receptor vector injections, that told you that these are targeting the reproductive organs. Primarily, and then they went into the details of that. And I've been exposing this intricately on a molecular basis, molecular engineering basis ever since, and going deeper and deeper into this. But people are still selling these frontline so-called supplements and frontline so-called treatments from pharmaceutical companies, and then citing quote unquote studies, pharma studies, and yet they're ripping apart the pharma studies for the A scam, and then they're selling the pharma studies for their B scam, and they're pretending as if there's something else, as if there's something different. And if you're not showing the molecules, teaching the molecules, aware and in full understanding of how these components work and all these individual pieces and the molecular mechanisms inside of that, if you're not teaching that and you don't understand it, you just don't understand. And there's a lot of egos still. There's still a lot of unwillingness to come out of this, and the massive number of gatekeepers is so huge. Because actually, what I'm going to go into, and I don't have enough time in a 12 minutes to do, so I really ask everybody to follow up with me. I can come on any podcasts, any video casts, etc. So I'm just going to skim over what I have. as quickly as I possibly can in these slides. But this is the most top secret military chemical weapons program that there is. I've done massive breakdowns of all the COVID drugs from remdesivir, baricitinib, all of these products in vast, like 4 or 5 hour long single presentations where I could go through days just reverse engineering all of the mechanisms and components, pieces, atoms of all of these quote unquote ingredients of the infusion. So there's a lot to do here, and everybody needs to know this. Everybody needs to understand this. So please follow up with me. Willing to teach for free. This is one of the ways I can help to save humanity when I'm not making energy technology, and enjoy open sourcing this where I can't really do, where I'm monetizing my energy technology. So with that being said, and in the chat, you've got my, let me show the screen here. You've got my contact information there, my X, my Telegram, where you can reach me anytime. I've presented so far on maybe 250 independent media, and I regularly co-host Weaponized News many times over the last few years. So here's my contacts there. That'll be in the presentation. You just screenshot that for yourself. So the DNA, RNA, chemical weapons, polymer delivery systems for genocide, which is what these are. These are plastic polymers, is what these are. So we've all been frauded that these are quote unquote DNA, the building blocks of life, and that this has something to do with that. It doesn't, folks. And if you're not aware of that, you're just not aware. It might sound crazy or outrageous for some people, but once you really get some education on this, you will start to understand. So let's look quickly, when was the quote unquote DNA created, right? Manufactured, discovered, right? They claimed that they found this in 1953, claimed that this is the building block of life, but you go looking, okay, well, when was it created, right? And they say many people believe American biologist James Watson and Francis Crick discovered DNA in reality, or in the 1950s. In reality, this is not the case. There's more to the story. And when you go looking, what you start to find when you actually look at the molecules instead of listening to the stories, the fake stories that they prop up, and these things are molecules, right? So go looking at the molecules. Don't look at the fake stories and what the media is giving you. And what these are, this process to manufacture these, the phosphoric acid polymerization process to make these plastics, that was patented to manufacture these products in 1952, right, by the Rockefeller Institute and apparatuses of it under Exxon and Esso and so on, from the Karchmers and Bethias and on and on. They described this, and this is an extension of the technology tree, and you can go through all of the patents of this being made over time, which I've done hundreds and hundreds of patents all the way back into the 1850s. I've gone back as far back as this can possibly go, looking at every single iteration that there is of this technology. And this comes out of the 1880s technology, where they started using phosphorus and phosphoric acid-based products, connecting these with other molecules to then derive what they call, quote unquote, E. coli. And E. coli, right, we were all brainwashed to believe that this is a biological agent out in nature. But actually, when you look this up, what are the molecules of this? This is a manufactured chemical product. And if you go to these factories that make the vaccines and whatnot, and I've interviewed a number of the people that do this, they use different chemical components in order to manufacture these. And these are all, right, molecular components. So here you have the E. coli here, then your DNA plasmid designs, and so on. And we manufacture this stuff, folks. This is not some natural right product, some natural organism that's out there. So you need to look more into that. Here's different types of quote unquote E. coli and the molecules. A phosphoric acid base with fatty acid chains attached to it. The phosphoric acid base, this can stick to your cells, stick to your endothelial cells, your skin tissue, your reproductive organs, your nerve cells. It has a high affinity to do that. And then when long chain fatty acids then stick to that, and this can be combined inside of the body or manufactured outside of the body. This causes autoimmunity. It causes massive inflammation. It causes autoimmune response, highly allergenic responses, cytokine responses when you get this inside of yourself, and causes massive clots. It's very sticky, congeals to itself here. So here's your, at the bottom in the chart A, your ionizable lipid, helper lipids and oils. And then they show how they actually construct this. And they show how they construct the same company that originally was designing this. One of the bioweapons companies in America, one of the big ones, was even designing this to be put into the water supply as one of their, what they call blended phosphate products, of which they have over 200 quote unquote blended phosphate products that they put into the water supply that you're not even allowed to see what those products even are. You're not allowed to know. They're secret products, and they own all of the intellectual property and rights over all of the water authorities of America and 5,000 different water authorities worldwide to put those products, right, sanitation products, into your water supplies. And your water authority, the regional water authority, is not even allowed to know what the hell that is. They can just show up and put it in there. So that's quite interesting. I have a lot of details and presentations on that as well. So here's your little refresher of DNA, RNA. Of course, the DNA is a double-stranded plastic polymer, and the RNA is a single strand, right? And they embed these different molecules inside of there. I can't get my cursor on here. That's interesting. So I'll have to back out to get my cursor on it. But we have your AGCT that we're all told, and we all go along with the story without thinking about what these molecules are. Okay, here's what DNA is. But then nobody looks at the molecules. There's AGCT, and then there's a phosphoric acid plastic ribbon, the plastic polymer ribbon, right? And then this sugar, if you will, this oil, sugar, carbon molecule, carbon ring molecule, right? And nobody even asks, what are these? What is an A? What is a seed, right? GT and uracil, uridine, pseudouridine. What are these, right? And what do they do? What are the mechanisms of those? What are the similar molecules to those? And what do we use those molecules for out there, right, in the industrial world and in chemistry? Actually, these four molecules, AGCT, those are toxic pesticides that damage the reproductive system, damage reproductive organs, and are used as pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides. That's what those are. So they ribbon this up into a plastic polymer ribbon, and then when you take this into your body, like food, you will metabolize that. It will then unravel, break up, and all of these toxic molecules will then be in your body, harming your reproductive system and harming your organs. And when they break down further, they can even metabolize into cyanide molecules in your body, which can cause, of course, all kinds of problems and poison you in a huge number of ways. That's actually what this is, folks. It might be hard for some to believe, but the longer you start to realize it and look into this, you will come to this full understanding. And this is made right just after the World War II period, when they perfected the manufacturing for this. And of course, in World War II, you had Cyclone B, which was a little bit obvious because you just had cyanide connected to an iron, a ferritin core there. So they're looking at new ways that they can hide this and be a little bit more stealthy. And here's remdesivir on the right-hand side, which I exposed to have a cyanide inside of that, wrote the book on it. They murdered you with remdesivir from the scientists who reverse engineered it, broke down all of this. It's a chemical weapon of mass destruction is what remdesivir is. And it deploys cyanide into your bloodstream, killing your and poisoning your red blood cells, causing the hypoxia and causing the renal organ failure and all your nerves shut down. And they said, well, okay, well, that's too obvious to have cyanide in there. So let's make molecules that will actually, when they metabolize in the body, it will generate cyanide. So the metabolite products will be cyanide in the body. And this is just a very basic, simple chemical weapons. I probably cannot back up there. Let me do this again here. Go back one slide. But this is the a crude version here of the chemical weapons technology tree. Just I whipped up a quick summary for people to be able to see that, going all the way back to, you know, software 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. The development of chemical weapons is very, very significant in the technology advancement, like anything else. Thousands and thousands of patents and different levels here, all documented, very well documented, completely undeniable. This is not some pseudoscience or some guess, folks. This is not a guess. And if you don't understand this, if you're not familiar with the history of this, you are guessing. Not to insult anybody here or anything like that, or to come off sounding arrogant or something. That's the fact. And I just speak that with urgency. The people need to get aware of what's actually going on because it's been too long. I also was the one who exposed these products initially as causing the rubbery clots because they're based on phosphoric acid plastic polymers, which we use in fuel cell proton exchange membranes. as electron gating instruments. It's also used in water treatment to like your reverse osmosis filters. There's a lot of different filters. Here you see some 3M plastic polymers, and this will polymerize inside of your body and then create this and congeal and gum up and start to coagulate together as it endlessly pumps through your blood. It will start to stick, and then the rest will stick on it almost like an epoxy. So that starts happening, and that's what they've found, and they've started taking that apart and analyzing that. And lately, I've been working on Lou Gehrig's disease, which they say is caused by quote unquote protein globs, and they call this all proteins. And they're selling proteins like crazy. The pharma industry say, "Oh, buy this protein, that protein," and MABs. Those aren't proteins, folks. Those are, again, chemical products made from oil, made from oil field oil in chemical plants. It's fake protein, plastic again. And they talk about these in Lou Gehrig's disease. They started doing the autopsies, and here it shows right from the ALS Association. In 97% of the dead ALS patients, which you get this protein, they call it a DNA, they call this a DNA protein gumming up inside of the brainstem, and they say the brainstem is a reservoir for viruses. They say this. So you have a lot of affinity of this phosphoric acid, sticky products sticking into the nerve cells and all over the endothelial tissue and reproductive organs, sensitive organs, etc. And they said in the autopsies, they found this in the patients 97% of the time. Now, they don't admit that that's a cause, but they find it 97% of the time. Now, I don't know what level of IQ everybody has, but that's a cause, right? Right. I mean, it's not rocket science to figure that out. And what's happening, and they even admit this DNA is growing on itself, right? It's adding to it. It's self-assembling. It's growing and growing into the spinal cord, growing into the brain, growing into the nervous tissue, and then interfering with it, causing the multiple sclerosis-like symptoms, causing all of this. And there it is. And then they came up with a fake solution where they use like an siRNA attachment, where they're going to take another plastic polymer that they manufacture and stick it, right, like an epoxy, onto that plastic polymer that's growing on itself to stop the growing. That's their magical solution. And then use an organophosphate plastic polymer to do that, which eventually will kill off the patient. This is what they present. Here's the molecular mapping of that. I won't go into this too much. You have your AGCTs there. And one thing I'll point out is attached to the phosphoric acid, they're using an organophosphate, so a phosphorus sulfur base there, which is toxic. So this is not going to help the patient. It might potentially slow down progression of ALS, but then eventually when this breaks up, you're leaving potential chemical weapons and chemical weapons metabolites and residues behind, which ultimately can very likely kill the patient. So it's a Band-Aid for a temporary time, and they can sell it and make a hell of a lot of money. And then the patient eventually will die anyway, right? So not very nice. And I've been working with the universities here locally in Cambodia to make other solutions, which I know I have a solution for that. So I'm working on that. And then now you have all these guys talking about amyloid fibrils, and they were trying to make another excuse for the COVID symptoms, blaming amyloid fibrils, pretending as if this is yet another airborne boogeyman disease, airborne infectious amyloid boogeyman that you can get, instead of actually this being from the injections and these plastic polymer components and chemical weapons delivery systems here. And here's the molecules. And if you haven't looked into what these are and how they work specifically and what they are similar to and how they are related to pesticides, if you haven't done any of this, you don't have any clue what's going on, folks. And you really need to do that. And we're never going to get out of this. Humanity is never going to escape this until everybody gets their head in here and starts figuring out what's going on in the molecules. The molecules are the ultimate crime scene witness. All the scientists can lie, all the gatekeepers can lie, but the molecules cannot lie. They are the ultimate in the crime scene witness. So in these tangles, you can see here in this example where it's circled, those will attach. So they're showing you these different attachments where these molecules will come together when they're in close proximity they'll start to connect. And this is happening automatically in your body all the time. So when they put these unnatural substances in, they start to attach in these unnatural ways because it's not natural to be there. And they start to form these amyloid fibrils, which they call it that, plaques and so on, cross connection. And here they even have, not sure how many people are aware of, tRNA. So of course, DNA, mRNA, siRNA, and they also have tRNA that they designed. And tRNA is they talk about how to build cancer causing tRNA in people. And they were doing this, and they show how these will connect and form these massive clots and form these fibrils. And it couldn't be more simple. What they're doing here is just basic chemistry and basic chemical interactions. And you can do this in a test tube, and the same exact thing will happen inside of the body. So, and they cause pseudonauts, and pseudonauts by design, folks. And if you put this into a human, that's what's going to happen. And that's exactly why we're getting these amyloid fibrils, these amyloid plaques, which then they, of course, the cover-up agents then blame it on something else. And they know what's going on. And with tofersen, when they have this sulfur-based organophosphate, this is very similar to, people are familiar with Botox, botulinum, which they call the most deadly poison in the world. And I show the similarities here to remdesivir, which are very concerning. And this can then metabolize, so break apart when it metabolizes naturally in the body, which your body's going to break this up. People are familiar with that. We got to break up the spike. Well, what happens when you do? You're releasing all of these different toxins and chemical weapons, potential metabolite products into the body. And that's obviously not good in a lot of ways. Here's another detailed slide of that. You can screenshot that, look through that. So just so you guys have that, I won't go through all the details because I'm pressed for time. So here's your RNA on the right-hand side, bottom right, RNA, DNA, uridine, pseudouridine. And I'll go to the next slide, just zoom up here on this section. And at the top, we show the difference between RNA and DNA on the left, RNA on the right, and the pseudouridines. And I can teach you guys exactly how those work specifically and what they're doing in the engineering of this so that they can construct what they want and deliver the products that they want to will then be attached to these. And this is why they made these changes from a uridine to a pseudouridine. And then they can attach certain things on it. No different than a robot or a weapon underneath an F-16. Change out your weapons on there, change out your molecules, your chemical weapons, metabolite products that are going to be metabolized off into the blood. You can put cyanide on there, you can put all kinds of things on there, and you can put your SV40 on there. And this is how it works, folks. And if you don't understand that, you don't understand, but nobody's teaching this. And I got to be the most censored guy probably in human history at this point. I've been fully erased from everywhere that there is. And they can put benzene and benzene crystals at these different points here, which will attach, right, as molecules do with electropolarization in electrical charges. And one of the things that they attach on there is the SV40. This molecule here is the SV40 promoter enhancer molecule, which has a benzene crystal. You can see the graphene crystal, which is benzene actually, attached to that. Here on the left-hand side of that triple carbon bond, that is your pseudouridine that they put on there, uridine or taurine or pseudouridine. You could do this on all of them, but they use a pseudouridine to attach and hold the SV40 promoter enhancer. And what happens with that is that crystal will then crystallize and grow by itself in the body, in the blood, in the fluid, because you're a carbon being in a carbon solution. And this will grow. And especially when you induct electricity into that, which you're doing because, right, it's graphene, it's a radio receiver and a radio electrocatalyst. So you're radializing with wireless radiation and all of this new sources of radiation, intense radiation. And it's the perfect environment to grow this as a crystal faster than anything before. And you can watch this on video live happening. And this will grow and grow and grow. And then burn the hell out of your cells, attach to your cell membranes. So here I showed in this slide the exact positions where they will attach that. And as they have done in these vaccines, where they've attached this SV40 promoter enhancer, which is the benzene crystal on there, so that they can generate this freely in the blood. That's what's causing your myelitis. It's one of the sources. The phosphoric acid plastic polymers will stick to your skin, inducing an immune response, which that'll cause it as well, especially when it has an affinity for nervous tissue. But when you put a benzene crystal onto those sensitive cells, like in the heart, all throughout your arteries, it'll harden your arteries, burn your arteries, cause third-degree burns inside of your arteries and burn the hell out of your cells, causing all kinds of damage. And two of the main components, mechanisms of cobra venom. Number one is the spike protein. You can look at where does that come from in nature. The spike protein in nature, it comes from venom, particularly cobra venom. And the other main mechanism of cobra venom is benzene crystallization. And where did they put that SV40 promoter enhancer? Into the 685 protein slot in that fusion furin cleavage site. And then here, and they've erased this from the entire NIH. They've erased all this, but fortunately I shared the screens and whatnot in the documents for this. Before they erased all it, you cannot find this anymore, folks. They've completely gotten rid of this. And as far, I haven't seen this anywhere else, and anybody else has this. And they describe in great detail how this is from cobra venom, and how for the they infused this into HEK 293 cells, and those HEK 293 cells, that was inserted in the 685 protein slot, a combination there, and and the similarity to the spike glycoprotein S1, they talk about this in great detail, and also from the manufacturers. So here's a video kind of image there. You can see the graphene attached to your cells and your tissues and the inside of your arteries all over your body, then being radialized by this electromagnetic radiation. And they talked for a long time, 15 years, about changing the solar panels to graphene solar panels because it'll induct so much electricity. And they still haven't done it, right? And this is what happens. It'll burn the shit out of your cells and your tissues and your arteries and your heart and your brain and all over your body when this is inducted with electricity. It's very easy to show this in a demonstration. Anybody can do this in any laboratory. And also phosphorus is highly electrocatalytic. And of course, Nikola Tesla, someone I like a lot, obviously, he was doing this with his bulbs, wirelessly lighting these up because they used phosphorus inside of those bulbs. And he's lighting these up from, hundreds of meters away just with wireless electricity, far less intense than we're using today. So when you induct electricity into these strands, these phosphoric acid strands, particularly with little solar panels of these benzene crystals on there, graphene crystallization inside of there, you're inducting massive amounts of electricity, which cause all kinds of electrocatalytic reactions, breaking these molecules up into your body, delivering all of this and causing variants. So different random chemical metabolite products spreading all throughout your body, variants of this endlessly everywhere. And then they're lying to you and gaslighting you that supposedly there's some airborne boogeyman out there. And then this is not the end, and it just goes on and on. Luciferase, coming back to this as well, and people got confused between luciferin and luciferase, which are two completely different molecules and do different things. But luciferase, which they are putting in the injections, and they're also inducing this through the SM102 that they put into the Moderna injections. And they generate luciferase, which then luciferase actually generates cyanide. It metabolizes cyanide into your body. And you can see in the luciferase molecule by itself, you have cyanide in there. So they can put a molecule into you that you don't know what this is, and it will form into luciferase in the chemical reactions in your body. And then that will generate, so they got multiple downstream pro-drug delivery mechanism creations. And I can explain, of course, exactly how that works. And I've done videos on that before. So I'll take a pause there. I didn't time myself. How are we for time there, Charles?
Well, I mean, that's a good place to bring in Susan, and then together both of you will take questions, and you can go more deeply into this. I think what you've presented so far is shocking enough, Thomas.
This is certainly a weapons of mass destruction, national security level risk. Every congressman should be aware of this. Our military should be aware of this. This is beyond dangerous. This can kill all of our political families, all of our leaders' families, all of them, all of our troops. The risk of this is so massive, and no one's talking about even the beginnings of this. And the gatekeeping is absolutely outrageous. And I would like to take a moment. I know people, you know, we're a culture. American culture is very much a celebrity worship culture in these camps that we get into. So I will rub some of those flames by saying this. But I would call on one organization, the so-called Vaccine Safety Research Foundation, Steve Kirsch, McKernan, McCarran, and so on. Not just in my opinion, in the facts, in the molecular facts and the records, the documentation of all of this. These guys are gatekeepers, and they're selling everybody down the wrong path, and they're deliberately orchestrating a dodge and as much distraction as they possibly can from what's really going on here. Sorry to Malone, not sorry. He's doing it as well. In fact, he was a major part of engineering this technology, and nobody can argue that. And nobody wants to go through with him on his patents, which show that and prove that. He was instrumental on this, and he's never told the full truth about that. And nobody challenges this guy. And when they do, they get sued or he blocks you. Many people are aware of that. So that has to happen. Somebody needs to have the balls to actually say what the facts are. And the molecules don't lie, folks. So we need to be a little bit more open about that. Get rid of our loyalties. And because this is one of the biggest military secret programs and most deadly military programs in the world. And you bet your ass they're going to protect it with all they've got.
All right, Thomas, and we'll continue with you with Q&A. And Susan, go ahead and take it away. She's a former Harvard public health researcher. She has presented before, and I assume some of what she says will reprise the impressive and scary facts she shared around the atmospheric spraying and what is involved with it and how it connects with also the wireless radiation. And she used in the promo that I shared the acronym NBCs with nuclear, biological, and chemical. So without further ado, Susan, take it away.
Thank you so much, and I'm so honored to be here with all of you. Thomas, I just I bow to your information, and I just want to say, by the way, I can't get my video on; it's blocked for some reason. It was on before, but someone has turned it off. That says the host has blocked video. So if you want to fix that, I will get my PowerPoint
It's
up.
not blocked, so you can start video.
I keep trying. Yeah, it's still blocked.
Let me see what I can do, but
yeah, if you want to make me co-host, and then I'll be able to do that, and also to share my PowerPoint.
okay, let's see.
I'll say in the interim that yeah, the whole reason, in my view, why the COVID black operation was able to get ahead and do as much damage as it did was because of the suppression of toxicology of this molecular view. What are the substances? What are the substances in the nose to brain shot, falsely called PCR test, right? DARPA calls it N2B, nose to brain. And we need to be looking at what are the actual molecules in all of these substances. So yes, let me try again, see if I can get on
It
here.
should work for you. I just made you co-host.
Okay, now it's working. Very good. All right, so I'm going to say hello. I'm
Hi,
going to share my
Susan.
screen. Yeah, wonderful to see all of you, and I'm so honored, and I'm so glad Judy Mikovits is here with us. We're honored to have many, many wonderful people. So, all right, I'm going to share my screen and get over to my PowerPoint here. I'll go as fast as I can through this. I'm going to come from a sort of a more practical point of view, I hope. So what do we need to do for life on Earth? How do we challenge authorities? You know, we're told by Hippocrates, above all, do no harm, but that kind of worked maybe in year 1000. But above now, because we're not in a purely biotic system anymore, we are surrounded by xenobiotics, things that are foreign to the Earth system. We have to first remove harm, not do no harm. We have to do both. So yes, NBCs, nukes, bios, chemicals, that's what they're referred to by the military. I like to use that in public health science as well. But also we have the EMKs on the other side that tend to get like be ignored, right? But Thomas brought this in because these interact: electromagnetic radiation, fields, mechanical vibration, and kinetics, things that move through the atmosphere. Are we okay? Someone just wanted to come in through the
Yeah, I'll ignore those. We
Okay.
handle those.
Okay, very good. And we already have in our atmosphere, we're filled with the Gs, 4G, 5G, well, actually 0G through 7G now, plus nanotech, literal nanocircuits. We show all of the Bluetooth signals that are in people's bodies. Well, yeah, I mean, half the people at the table were so upset their Bluetooth signals were showing that they immediately got up and left. Anyway, with a smartphone, according to a guy who was positioned next to me when I was invited by military intel to Mar-a-Lago in 2022, they have all the biometrics they need, but they want another 4,000 data points from within the body. And here are some of the biometrics. They particularly seek heart rate. Heart rate can be seen just by Wi-Fi in an environment and special tech that filters out other signals so that they can simply look at a heart rate and they can see that for anybody in a Wi-Fi environment if they want. So what do we need to do? How do we step out of this wireless nanotech enslavement system individually, but also empower everyone at the larger scope, at the larger level? So yes, this total enslavement and poisoning under the Internet of Bodies, the IOB, they gave us this authority, okay, and then we need to legislate and provide executive orders to protect our atmosphere, which will protect our land, water, soil, our land, water, air, and so on. And so I want to reveal that old document. Here is what it was actually called: Congressionally Mandated Research Plan and an Initial Research Governance Framework Related to Solar Radiation Modification. Big totalitarian move, right? Like the WHO treaties and so much more that happens. So what are these threats? People call them geoengineering, weather modification, solar radiation management, and all these things. But what we need to call it if we want to win, and this is why I write legislation and executive orders, call it atmospheric contamination, which is a general term for it all. Also experimentation and research. This is how the language that can actually be used to win. All right, so here are just some of those terms: SAI, stratospheric aerosol injection, or marine count brightening, cirrus cloud thinning, but we need to call it pollution, right? Here we have the NBCs and also the EMKs. So, are we going to be mere puppets, or are we going to work on this? So one of the ways to get around this, one very useful tactic, is the question, quo warranto, by what authority are you, public official, doing something? And when we ask 3 times and don't get a good answer, we can also then say the official is ultra vires, is outside their legal authorities. And that's when things start to move. And we just had great success doing this, by the way, in Concord, Massachusetts. We got rid of some smart meters over it. And by the way, I'm the person who stopped arguably more cell towers from being constructed than anybody in the world. So this is where we want to look also for all sorts of invalid signatures, such as executive orders that were in the past. So, and of course, we want to do all these wonderful things, as you know. Now, over here, I say grow 40% of your own food. Why is that important for survival? It was at this conference I just attended that Richard Allen Miller, a physicist, MIT, metaphysicist, taught metaphysics at Harvard many years, worked with NASA, has all kinds of secretive information. He kept telling everybody last week, it's going to happen by the end of the month. We don't know whether it really will. Other people say it won't, but the 10 days of darkness. And so we need to start with our own states and not just growing food, but at the political level. Here are some better states that actually have either attempted or have actually criminalized, as in the case of Florida, what they may call geoengineering or weather modification. We have a lot of states involved. 35 were involved in this last session. Yet 30 states still allow specifically geoengineering and solar radiation management. So we need to use precedents. In the 1960s, Maryland, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania all blocked aerosol injection. Now that's just one piece of it. That's not the electromagnetic piece. And there are bills out there requiring AI as king. And speaking of kings, tomorrow is that big thing, you know, on Capitol, well, wherever it is. Well, no kings, right? Well, let's make that wish come true. So you can call me. I'm going to put my phone in the chat there, and also go to Zero Geoengineering. There's a lot of talk out there. And as Thomas says, a lot of gatekeepers. We have to really watch out for them and clear them away. We have to correct their misinformation. Absolutely. And we need to create health for all creatures. So I've only skimmed the surface here, but let me go back to what I really had wanted to say beyond this. I'm going to actually come out of this. I'll stop the share now and come back. Okay, here we are. All right, good. So in public health science, we call these NBCs or EMKs, we call them agents, right? Hazardous agents. In the military, we call them weapons, right? So which are they? Well, if you're getting hit with them, all of them simultaneously, you've got to understand they're weapons, right? Because you see the intentionality. In a court of law, this would be understood to be intentionality. I have a presidential executive order to stop atmospheric contamination, geoengineering, weather modification, and all the rest. If anyone would like to support it, we actually desperately need some support right now for that. Now, Florida's legislation criminalizing weather modification had very, very bad language. And unfortunately, Marjorie Taylor Greene copied that language when she created her what is right now at the US level. That's HR 4403, in case you want to take a look at it. We're working with her office to try to improve that. And also there are others at the federal level who want to stop it at the federal level. Problem is, in order to override the military, they do need a commander-in-chief override through an executive order. So that's why, and I have been tasked to write that, and a better one than any of the executive orders that are already out there, frankly. So, you know, a cleansing of our environment, everybody wants to start at the individual level. You know, for the literal nanocircuits, the 90-degree square nanocircuitry, all that I know that has really shown to be working in electron microscopy and microspectroscopy is EDTA. Okay, not perfect. It's not perfectly biologic, but again, in a world where we're surrounded by and infused with xenobiotics, we've got to try some things that are made in a lab as pure as they can be. I personally have met someone who was involved for 40 years infusing the atmosphere with all sorts of chemical, biological, nuclear, and tech weapons. That program was decided upon in 1947, and it was begun in earnest in 1952. And so at this point, we've got a lot of cleansing to do. It's in everything that we eat, everything that we grow. And so we have this potentially cascading cycle downward. You know, even from the images in Thomas's presentation of what's going on internally in our bodies, because even those of us who never took a nose to brain shot or an arm shot, we're still exposed to everyone who did. And this is nanotech. It is conveyed just as gases, just through inhalation, in our eyes, mouth, any orifices, through the skin. And so we do need to be actively removing that. EDTA plus NAC per, you know, Dr. Michalcia, Anna Maria Michalcia, if you don't know her work. So, let's see, you know, whether it's food, water, air, atmosphere, you know, all these vectors are conveying these things to us. I also want to talk about, you know, my term, the cross-curve phenomena. In the time-dependent sensitization literature, the idea is that every time there is induced, whether in an experimental, unfortunate animal laboratory situation, a full convulsive seizure, a week later or sometime later, it takes less of the pesticide or the electric current or whatever is used to induce the seizure. It takes less agent each time. You can even switch them. You can start with, well, this much electric current is needed to start the first convulsive seizure. And at the next level, now you can just use a little less pesticide, such as endosulfan, which is typically used for that purpose. So you have this curve of, you know, subsequent exposures are actually causing more, here, let me do it this way, more reaction, okay? Less exposure, more reaction. That's how biological entities tend to work. This is why we lose whole species and why things can cascade very quickly. So anticipating a potential cascade, we need to get in and interrupt these curves as quickly as we can using Thomas's work and others. I'm going to stop right there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan, for that. I guess at this point it's time for Q&A. Charlie, you have something to say?
Sure. I'll start the questions off. Thank you very much, Susan. I hope you get to go into more detail, you too, Thomas, with the Q&A. So everyone just click raise hand to get the questions going. Let's start with the hopium that most of us have with the RFK and the MAHA recommendations. I mean, generally in the science part, they want real placebos that are inert. They want replication. Most of us would say just fixing the science will help us get to what you're talking about over the long run. Do either of you see the glass half full with the MAHA recommendations, or is it just a complete waste of time?
I just want to put up there first, the MAHA report was absolutely ridiculous, particularly regarding electromagnetic radiation. The people who wrote that section didn't know anything about it. They didn't go to any expert about it. They apparently went to AI, and with regard to other sections of that MAHA report done within 100 of the first days, they were using AI. They were using AI to generate a scientific report, and it was ridiculous. So some of us have been making corrections. We need a lot more corrections. Thank you.
Thomas? You're muted, Thomas.
You're muted for some reason. Doesn't show you're muted, but you are.
Icon, it's not working for some reason. Yeah, it is shocking for me to see this, being right, understanding this at a molecular level that nobody's talking about at all. For me to see 5 years of this going on and no one even looking or even bothering or even interested to look at the molecules at all. Where are all the molecular engineers? There's none involved in this. They're all silenced. They're all suppressed. Our accounts are all deleted, right? There's nobody, no pharmacological engineer whistleblowers anywhere. You might notice that, right? None of the engineers making these pharma products, none whistleblowing, none coming out, none showing all of this like I'm doing in vast hours long explaining every single detail of this. No, they're just pushing, oh, this supplement because pharma said, that for a supplement because this pharma study said. This is crazy. It's so crazy to watch this. And then for them to be, right, pushing any more of these injections. Actually, what needs to happen is we need to have, right, these components from these injections, right, taken and the simple demonstrations, not experiments. There's nothing experimental to do here. The simple demonstrations to show in the lab right underneath video in front of everybody's eyes. They can see exactly happen and meter and test every single thing that I'm talking about. There's no guessing here. This is the most basic fundamentals of chemistry, the most used industrial science that we have in all of humanity, done millions of times a day all around the world in all of our factories and all of our produce, everything, right? This is the most concrete science that we have that we're talking about here in the most simple methods. This can be done. It needs to be done and then shown to these people. And then there's no way that they can deny it anymore. The only way we get through this is having that done. It's through the molecules, folks. And then they can't ignore anymore. And because this is being hidden so badly, that's why we're 5 years down the road and we're still here. And these things are still being shoved at us from, top 15 MSM media posts, which is what AI is actually searching, right? Is the mainstream media crap when you look at what they actually search.
Thank you, Thomas, for that. And it seems like a lot of criminal prosecutions need to be conducted, and they haven't been conducted because that's the only way it'll stop this thing. It's to put the fear of God in these people who are getting away literally with murder. We have Mark Brody who has a question. Mark?
Thank you. Those were pretty shocking presentations, especially for somebody who thought he understood how bad things were. Now I hear it's way worse. Two questions. One is, in your opinion, are the scientists who have been working obviously and for years and years to create these dangerous molecular technologies, are they aware of how dangerous the products they are creating are, or have they been
Absolutely,
have they been
absolutely
snowed?
they are. There's
What's
no
that?
way that they don't understand. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering if they too have been snowed by their masters into thinking, oh, they're toxic, but they're going to be deployed for a positive humanitarian mission. That's just the way we've been told. The second question is, given the fact that there's such massive suppression of valid information and the problem of bringing this up with people who have cognitive dissonance, who've been trained to regard such dissonant information as conspiracy theories, how can we get through to the people who need to know the terrible things that are being concocted by the military and by, that's the Department of War on people?
I just want to bring
Okay.
to everyone's attention Judy Mikovitz's comment in the chat, saying we need to criminally prosecute those 3 men. So take a look at that, among others, right? But
Mhm.
how do you get to criminal prosecution? That's in the 3rd branch of government, right?
Right.
It's called the 3rd branch because often you cannot get to the 3rd branch until you've dealt with the 2nd branch. And how do you get the second? The 2nd branch won't do anything. They take their time. It's all, and by the time you get a really good bill there, it's going to get compromised. So how do you deal with that? You need the 1st branch. So you go 1st branch, 2nd branch. Then you have the capacity to do the prosecution that you need. You need to use all 3 branches practically. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
And people need to come to grips with the fact that just like all these crazy wars that are going on, which you can't understand why the hell anybody would support any of this kind of stuff. There's no shortage of these people that are supporting all of these bombings, these genocides, and everything else. There's tons of those kind of people. You will not convince those people. They want to use these kind of weapons and these kind of clandestine technologies, right, to kill these people and do these kind of things. Unfortunately, this is the human condition. There's a lot of strange and messed up people that are all for this. They're all for this, power and conquering other people, and they're for it. I mean, you're not going to convince those people, and right. So you're only going to convince those who maybe actually don't know, and then you can wake those guys up. But there's a huge section of people that are all for this, folks, and you just got to admit that there's that section.
How could they be for depopulation when it's they who are being depopulated and their families?
Well, I'm sure they have some sort of cure for themselves, or else they
It's
feel
not about cure, really. It's about they have on deep underground military bases that they count on that they may not need to count on at some point. Maybe that won't be available.
Yeah, absolutely. And they feel immune to this. So
and they exempted the officials. They exempted all of these federal departments. They exempted these governments and government officials across all of these nations, right? And the WHO has been on television multiple times admitting they don't take them, and they have homeopaths and the Pfizer, Aborla, and all these other vaccine company executives admitting they don't take it. And it's not proper manners for us to take them. Let's let everybody else take them first, and I'll put myself at risk. This is the garbage that they sell us.
well,
they didn't take
what they did, Thomas, I know in many instances, Pfizer Australia did this when the COVID-19 shots were being given for the first time. They told all of their employees, do not go to your doctor to get the COVID-19 shot. Come to the Pfizer offices. We will give you the shots here. And of course, you can be pretty sure they were placebo, just saline solution shots, injections, and they didn't get the real deal.
Right, it was
Especially-
illegal for them to do that in Australia. They illegally broke the law, went around the TGA illegally, almost got reprimanded for it, but then didn't get reprimanded for it. They're not supposed to do that, and they continue breaking the law, doing whatever they can. And no testing. And show me one official, show me any of these pro-vax people that's actually come to any of you guys here. Let's have, for the very first time in human history, one of those officials that claim to have gotten it come in here live, get a blood test from all the conspiracy theorists, and they can test to see if they actually got it or not. For the very first time, folks,
Yes.
humanity's owed that from every single one of these pushers.
Okay, Charles, you had a question?
I do, but before I did, Susan mentioned Judy Mikovits. If Dr. Mikovits wants to unmute and respond and maybe comment or ask a question.
Yeah, of course, I'm commenting real time back and forth. Every bit of what they're saying is true, and I've been trying to say that. You know, I work with I was the technician for Candace Pert, Luc Montagnier, Frank Rossetti. Our book, Ending Plague, tells you all of this. Candace Pert, of course, Molecules of Emotion. So I've been continually mischaracterized. And yeah, I mean, they shut down our October 23rd paper. Go look at October 23rd in Science, 2009. It was online in October 8th. John Kaufman was the primary reviewer of that paper. He sat in the AIDS drug resistance program and at Tufts for more than 40 years at Fort Detrick. Oh, and we presented that work, our company, Genius Omniture, we presented it to DARPA a month before it was submitted. And John Coffin, Jonathan Stoy, the primary reviewers, UK Nature journals, science journals, Ian Lipkin, they literally slaughtered this paper in the 2 years, took all the immunology data out of the paper, and half the people on the paper were murdered, including, well, Luc Montagnier was murdered, or killed or silenced. And all of them came from the, why do we have a lab of molecular diversity at our National Cancer Institute? Goes all the way back to Peter Duesberg. And I wasn't Wakefielded, I was Duesberged. And of course, I have proof positive. And I do know the one thing I'll say about Trump Kennedy is, and I'll say Kennedy, is Bobby is holding these data, and he has the data, and he understands the data, and we're trying to pull out those criminals in the system like Robert Malone. It's real easy to silence Robert Malone, and I did it October 9th of 2022, said, "Who's your daddy?" And I guarantee you it's not Jesus Christ. Well, some lawsuits went away right after that, because when I was fired September 29th and my lab locked down 2011, when I was fired, but let's just say Fauci, Harry Reid, Harvey Whittemore, they literally handed 45 years of data to Robert Malone the way they always do. And here's how they do it. They cancel all the names. The papers go through peer review, and so does the grants. So do the grant proposals. And they reject the proposals. Who wants to reject Rossetti today or the paper? They reinvent the wheel, and then get their Nobel Prizes. They gain a function. So I never worked for Tony Fauci. I told him to go fuck himself in 1983 when he tried to do his gain of function on LAV, and he did not get away with it. We have every molecular clone, every single thing, and the liquid nitrogen tanks around the world. I'm not dumb enough to plug them in while they're taking the water out of the fires here in California. We have proof positive of all of this, and the government has it. But unless you weed out these criminals from your scientific, it's your scientific literature at the highest level worldwide. And you're sitting in Belgium, Scott Tip. So no, I don't have questions. I'm just grateful for you guys, Thomas and Susan, for being on there. Yeah, I'm a molecular biologist and a former National Cancer Institute director of the Lab of Antiviral Drug Methods, and they purposely, and RICO, we filed it every bit of it. We never stop filing these cases, and I know they can do something, and pro se too. So, and in vaccine court, we testified, you name it. There's nothing we didn't do the best we could to stop it, and we still have all that data, and we try every step of the way. And I'm just going to say Peter McCullough too. That criminal is at least coming closer, you know, to Jesus. And just, you know, he's looking like a fool because they all got guns to their heads. We've got to understand what Thomas and Susan was saying as a community. If we turn around, and I do it on my X base, I just put a Robert Malone bobblehead on Tony Fauci's body, you know, and nobody gets it. You know, nobody gets it. He was handed that technology by David Baltimore. He's not a scientist. He's not a PhD. He's not an MD. He lied on his CV, and we caught him, you know, and we caught him. And I'm just going to say Clarke in 2022. So it's not too hard to catch these folks, but you can't talk like I just did. All I said was, "Who's your daddy?" And I knew. And he said, I said, "Who's your mentor?" Our CVs look the same. We're the same age. Why don't I know you? Oh, because David Baltimore is the criminal, and Howard Temin discovered reverse transcriptase, and we have a reverse transcriptase called polymerase theta. Yeah, I said that on yesterday's Clay Clarke show. So yeah, I could talk forever, but I'm grateful that I happened to read my email for the first time in weeks and got on this call today. So thank you guys for doing that. And Scott, I know you've always defended me, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Judy.
Polymerase
Thank you,
theta,
Judy.
polymer.
Hang on,
Polymer, exactly.
polymer. Thank you, Judy, and you and I
Not from
need
the
to
wild,
talk
folks.
about, Thomas, one moment, please. So you and I need to talk about your speaking at the next Dallas event, please.
Thank you.
Because we'd love to have you there again. You were a great speaker last time and very much sought after by the audience. So
Thank you. I put it on the
okay.
calendar.
Thank you. We'll talk more, and I'll loop you into the plans for that. Thomas, I'm sorry, I cut you off on something you were saying. Did you want to finish?
Yeah, I just wanted to identify, Judy was saying about the reverse polymerase, right? And people need to pay attention to that word because it's there, it's hidden, embedded, nobody's noticing. These are, someone mentioned, right? This cannot have occurred fortuitously. So all of the talk about, you know, COVID, SARS-CoV-2 coming from nature. Please explain to me how chemical plant manufactured plastic polymers with benzene crystals embedded into them magically happens in nature. Please just show us, just show me that somewhere in nature. Just show us that one time for the very first time, and take it in a lab and show us this. You cannot do that. It doesn't exist. This is clearly a manufactured, engineered product. And this is a result of literally hundreds of years of advancements in technology. And the paperwork is all there. It's all public. Patent after patent after patent showing every single iteration.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Thomas. Charles, did you finish your question, or can we move on to?
No, my hand was taken down. Just Susan, did you want to respond to what Judy said as well?
Well, I just wanted to point out also the concept of persistent organophosphates, where you have both the organophosphate part plus the organochlorine part, which makes them persistent, right? So you have these terrible nerve agents that are persistent, not just neurotoxicants, but cancer causers and so on. This is in the environment, and they're horrific.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Two questions. Susan, if you could go into more detail about your geoengineering EO, number one, and then I'd like to have a discussion on your detox recommendation with others. Like I think Matt Warnock is on the show, people in the supplement business with EDTA and NAC. I think a quick discussion on mitigation and healing is important too, but first your EO.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've been looking at all the executive orders, the presidential ones. I've already provided gubernatorial EOs for all 50 states. It requires a lot more than legislation because you have to for example, teach, credential, authorize law enforcement so that you can actually have people that will stop these programs. You can't just say, oh, let's criminalize it. Okay, now it's criminalized. Now what do you do? No, nothing, right? Nothing will happen. So you have to actually authorize law enforcement, you have to authorize airport managers and all sorts of things to happen. And you have to deal with NexRad radar facilities, right? That's microwave radiation, pulse modulated for maximum harm. And what do you do with the HARP facilities? Not only the one in Alaska, but the ones that are owned by the Russians, the Chinese, and the Indians, right? So you have to deal with all of that. So it's a lot to do, and it can only be done with a combination of first and second branches, so that you can even go into, have a hope to go into the third branch and get people behind bars. So do any prosecution. So yeah, working hard on doing the very best presidential executive order that has ever been created. And if anybody wants to support it, we sure need it. But, and then to your other question, coming from a toxicology perspective, I want to look at the molecules and the atoms. I want to look at electron microscopy and find out what's really going on. That should have been the initial question. By the way, everyone loves Joe Ladapo. I love him too, Surgeon General, Florida, right? Who's the gone ahead of any other state. If you read his book, he's relying entirely on one side of public health science, which is epidemiology, just looking at human studies that can't show causality. Don't look at it. No, let's not look at what actually is happening inside the vials or inside the so-called PCR tests, which are literal nose to brain injections. Let's not look at any of that. No. We're only going to look at these studies that are what? They're garbage in, garbage out. They're all garbage. Why? Because nobody knew what they were counting when they counted COVID in, incidences or deaths. They had no idea what they were counting, right? So it's all garbage. All epidemiology pertaining to that COVID black op is complete garbage, right? And yet everyone's relying on it for this or that. I'm just stunned when people cite those papers. What was completely suppressed, as I said before, was the toxicology side. What's actually in it? What's functioning? What are the molecules doing? Where do we get this nanocircuitry with literal nanocircuits and boards, right? Well, what about not just the solids, liquids, and gases, but the plasma side of this and the energetic side, right? The electromagnetic radiation fields. So all of this has to be seen as interconnected and functioning very harmfully, as Thomas said, in human bodies, and it needs to be removed. I mean, we do have some good things happening.
No, we
right?
don't.
We well, we have in the chat, for example, Irene posted that a big cell tower from in New Mexico was just stopped. Another one we just stopped in St. Augustine, Florida. We just stopped the smart meters in Concord, Massachusetts. We're stopping certain things that could have been far more harmful, but we need to do far more. So
well, we have one in Lewis County, Washington State for you to stop, please. Cell tower. We need to move on, though. Let's see, Frederick, you had a question. You have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. It's about cyanide, and we know that we run into cyanide when drilling private and municipal water wells as a sediment in our aquifers or associated with our aquifers. But how is that different than the placement of cyanide in the molecular structure? It seems like they're weaponizing cyanide. Is there a difference between those two cyanides?
Anyone? Thomas or Susan?
Yeah, can you mention the first bit of your question again? We just got some noise in the background here.
We run into cyanide sediments that when in aquifers and when drilling for water and developing water systems, and long-term drinking of that can have a health impact. However, it seems to me like there is a difference between that cyanide and naturally occurring and the apparent weaponization of it by placing it in a molecular structure. Can you comment on that? Are they the same cyanide, or is it being just the placement of it, or is it being chemically manipulated to be a more biodegradable damaging cyanide?
Well, so, as far as so far, you know, we the molecular industry is aware cyanide is cyanide. It does not really matter where it comes from. Now, whether it's free cyanide in the blood or it's connected to something, that will have a difference in how that's going to ultimately be able to affect your cells. But anywhere that you ingest this, even the fake B12 in your so-called multivitamins, like a cyanocobalamin, they're feeding you cyanide from waste products instead of you the actual cyanide chelating B12, which is in a cyanide kit called hydroxycobalamin, which that needs to be redone because even that has contaminants in it that shouldn't be there. So they've hijacked that as well. There's 4 different so-called B12s. They're all different, but nobody's looking. So you have all of these health influencers all over the internet endlessly pushing this, and they don't even have any idea what the hell they're pushing. They're just trying to make a buck posting up some supplement buy page somewhere. So cyanide is very damaging to you. It's very important for more important than ever, since they're feeding this into everything and all kinds of molecules that then when they break down, they form cyanide as metabolite products. So we need to chelate the cyanide out of us with a cyanide kit. Hydroxycobalamin is the best way to do that currently until somebody makes something better.
Thank you.
Susan, did you have anything to
I'm frantically taking notes on everything.
add?
So yeah, and I did have a question for Thomas and others. I mean, I haven't seen any evidence that acetic acid or zeolite can deconstruct, break down, dissolve nanocircuitry like EDTA can and does. So do you have evidence of that? Thomas?
You're talking about breaking down nanocircuitry. There's been a lot of how to say this I don't want to use the term misinformation, a lot of confusion about this, and a lot of this through the influencer circuit came from this video that these guys at La Quinta Columna, some guys in Brazil, some Spanish guys or something like that, they put up this video from somebody else. It was not their video, it's not their experimentation or demonstration. They put up this video where they showed the vaccine underneath a microscope slide, and they showed the graphene in there, the benzene crystallization is what they showed. No nanobots, no evidence of nanobots at all, but people claimed that without any of this evidence, and then just ran wild in this insistency that supposedly that's what that was, right? So you have benzene crystals in there. And then they took some tobacco leaves. They took some tobacco leaves and they put the tobacco leaves into a cup, right? And then they put some water in there, made a tobacco tea, if you will. I call this the tobacco tea. And there's many different molecules inside of a tobacco leaf if you go and look. And then they took the water, the tobacco tea, they extracted this, put it underneath the slide, and then they saw the benzene crystals dissolve. And then they listed on the side of the video the 21 molecules that were in the tobacco tea. And then many of the influencers cut off that list of the molecules completely to hide it from you deliberately, right? In some kind of, I mean, you could call it a criminal cover-up. I certainly would. Out of those 21 molecules, 19 of them dissolve the benzene, and there's one that will not. And there's one product out of those 21 that is a toxic, poisonous, dangerous, and potentially lethal pharma product, and that's called nicotine. They took the nicotine, sold it to you, lying through their teeth that this supposedly nicotine dissolves nanobots. Bullshit. That's absolute lies. What dissolves benzene, there's no nanobots in there. What dissolves benzene is 19 other molecules that were in the tobacco tea, which they then eliminated from your vision, deliberately hid that from you. And if you look at EDTA, it's not a thing. There's a molecule. You need to look inside. I have some slides about that. I'll post it on my X afterward. And inside of EDTA, there's 4 molecules of acetic acid. It's the acetic acid which dissolves the benzene. That's what dissolves it. And EDTA is non-naturally occurring. Again, it's a chemical construct, but acetic acid is in your apple cider vinegar. It's in your table vinegar. It's one of your body's natural cytokine molecules, your defense response system. It's natural, and you can take this, and if you use that instead of the EDTA, you don't have the risk. It's much more mild. It's, you know, it's a natural product. Your body's used to that. You can get rid of this downside of the EDTA, and then all of these other toxic, endless new formulations that they make to poison people and fool people, and where the damage is coming from the EDTA, you can get rid of that. Just use the acetic acid. So people need that, and that's, again, the importance of people just taking the next thing that influencer is selling, celebrity selling, versus actually looking inside to start to unravel what these things are.
Yeah, Thomas, I just want to respond to that because this actually, I mean, EDTA doesn't have any celebrity, whatever. That's false. And I don't promote it either. Okay. I don't, you know, it's made in a lab. It's got some cyanide going on in there in the process of creating.
Some do and some don't. Some don't have that.
Right.
But some do have that. There's different formulations of it.
There are different formulations, and some are better than others. And someone actually has posted, thankfully, in the chat, something that's better than others. But I do want to say that, you know, while La Quinta Columna has been shown from time to time not to be as rigorous as others, okay, I don't know if you've seen Ana Maria Michalskia's work. I view her as being very, very rigorous, and she has pointed out some of the errors of Quinta Columna. But her electron microscopy, you can go and look at yourself. The EDTA will dissolve nanocircuitry, and then of course she adds NAC to that, you know, to liquefy things more and help them be released better from the body. And NAC is actually pretty close to being pretty natural. So I agree with you, acetic acid. I'm not sure though that acetic acid actually can break down nanocircuitry. If it were, we need to ask whether that really can work.
It's the most basic chemistry that there is, actually. That's how chemistry works.
For benzene rings, but actually for nanocircuits?
Well, they're composed of benzene.
Of graphene?
Yeah,
What's the relationship between
graphene is a marketing label term for benzene. There's no real such thing as graphene. It's actually benzene. This is a sticker. Graphene is just a sticker like Coke. But what is Coke? It's right. What is Coke? You have water, you have sugar, you have food coloring, you have other, right, phosphoric acid, you have molecules in there. And that's what actually Coke is. And they stick a label on there. And benzene is so toxic, so carcinogenic, cancer-causing, and damaging to your body. And that's completely known. There's no way that they could market this for any of the other benefits that could possibly be in a consumer product or something by saying benzene, benzene. I mean, it'd be like marketing asbestos or something like that. Everybody would reject it. So they had to come up with some new fancy marketing term so that they could even, right, get some public acceptance. And that's what graphene is.
So when people look, for example, at the breakability of what they call graphene, it's approximately that of ceramics, right? So that you get these tiny little razor blades, if you will, floating all around the body, cutting everything, cutting the the insides of our blood vessels and making them raw and less capable of allowing the red blood cells to pass easily through the capillaries. What are they actually saying that is different from benzene, if there is any difference? Does benzene have the breakability of ceramics? I mean, it's measurable. There's a number.
Graphene sheeting, people are familiar with all of the marketing claims of this, bulletproof and using it for helmets in the military and all of these kind of things. It's right. Can be an alternative to steel. So in the right use, it's much stronger than ceramics. It's much more durable than ceramics, and can damage cells much stronger than natural earth ceramics in a number of ways. It's also an incredibly powerful electric catalyst. If you try to induct radiation into ceramics, you're not going to get much heat in there. But if you do this into benzene, you're going to get hundreds of degrees centigrade, burning the hell out of all your cells, which is your organs. It's massively more dangerous. In the mouse trials, which Judy Mikovits would be familiar with this, if we want to do some cancer drug study on on mice, and we need stage 4 cancers in mice. What do we use to cause the stage 4 cancer in the mice? We use benzene to cause a stage 4 cancer in the mice. And right, and no one's talking about this being in these benzene crystals, being in people, causing all of these super cancers. It's crazy. So benzene is far more dangerous than in the human body than ceramics by magnitudes, much more dangerous. But fortunately, benzene can be oxidized and broken up, right? Not dissolved, because that's just sinking that into water. This can be broken up by simple molecular reactions, particularly with oxygen and these simple acids. So acetic acid, malic acid, citric acid, all of these simple acids, fruit acids, will break up benzene. And so people need to get out of this mindset. I don't know, because I've worked with molecules for a long time. I don't know how they got in this mindset of thinking a molecule is somehow like some kind of magic potion that has magical features and benefits. Oh, this thing does this and this thing does that. No, we need to actually look at what that is, how many, right? What the structure is. Does it have an acid head in there? Does it have oxygen in there? Is it oxidizing, right? Or what's going on with that? We can't just claim, you know, an EDTA is this and has these magical features and this other thing has these magical features. That's not how chemistry works, folks. We need to look deeper. Have a look at acetic acid, have a look at EDTA. I'll post that slide and you will see inside the EDTA molecule, there's 4 molecules of acetic acid. So when that EDTA possibly breaks up or metabolizes, you end up with a bunch of acetic acid in there doing the actual work. So the actual active ingredient of that product is the acetic acid then that's doing the chelation, because it's oxidizing, it's breaking up all of these other molecules, causing these toxic elements and whatnot to become free in the bloodstream. And then you can excrete that out of your body and your blood system, where normally that stuff is caught up in something and attached in somewhere. So, but the EDTA is artificially produced. Why would you take something that's chemically artificially produced that has all these other risks, right? Why wouldn't you take the natural one? It doesn't make any sense. But people want to hang on to their magic potions and get in an argument about that without even looking. And this, to me, I just don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. We need to focus on learning, going back and being more open-minded, right?
And that's
Okay,
why we
let's
need to look
go.
also at electron microscopy, actually look at the electron microscopy action. So I'd like to see acetic acid, or maybe a combination of them, breaking up nanocircuitry, because that's really important. We're being induced, we're being sucked into this digital prison of the Internet of Bodies, and it's essential that we break up nanocircuitry in our bodies. So we need to look
Yeah,
at electron microscopy.
it certainly is, Susan. I agree with you, but we need to move on. Now, Freeman has a question.
Hi, yes, give me just a quick second to get situated here.
Do you have a camera, or are you going to do it without? It's always best if you ask a question if you can turn on your camera.
Okay, my video is disabled, but that is okay. Thank you, Susan and Thomas and everybody. I just wanted to sort of ask, because you know, there's various chelators out here, and I'm kind of just listening and learning. Even before I knew about sort of the whole nano aspect about all of this stuff, you know, for about 10 years, I'm 29 now, I've been trying to sort of detox. And I guess the issue that I've always run into is kind of like the whole too toxic to detox kind of thing. But I refuse that to be true. There has to be some sort of way for sort of the most sensitive of us, who probably are the most loaded with this crap. I'm just wondering if anybody has run into those types of people, or if anybody's had a personal experience of really struggling with severe symptoms and has found something to sort of slowly start moving the needle, if that makes sense.
Susan or Thomas, do you have?
I couldn't make out what, I think it was.
It was hard for me too. I couldn't quite get it. Freeman, can you just state it in a very concise way what your question
Yeah,
is?
are you able to hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. My microphone isn't in the greatest shape. I'm just basically wondering if anybody who, there's this sort of term of, people who are trying to detoxify, like too toxic to detox. But I refuse to believe that that is true. And so I guess my question is, has anybody had personal experience, or does anybody know of ways to start moving the needle for people who are too sensitive for even, say, like acetic acid, or EDTA, or really anything?
Well, this is a really good question because it sort of gets to the heart of the matter as to how we can detox from these things, which is what Susan was talking about and Thomas as well with the acetic acid. Thomas, Susan, do you want to respond? Either of you? Bueller?
Cases is for individual cases, if somebody is suffering with detox issues, there's plenty of doctors in here. Maybe reach out, contact Charles, ask for a referral for the National Health Federation here for somebody that maybe you can talk to. Because if somebody's got a tough individual case, you probably need some individual consideration for your specific situation there. But you can reach out to Charles and Scott, perhaps for a referral.
Yeah, thank you for that, Thomas. I think the key for all of this, I see Jennifer's hand is up. Maybe she has an answer to this. Jennifer?
For the question before, I've heard peptides. If you're working with a good integrative doctor, that peptides can help like super sensitive people. I don't know anything about them and they're new, but that's just something I've heard. And my question for Thomas and Susan is, I have EMR syndrome and I get very sick and lots of symptoms when I'm around the wireless radiation, whether that's from a 5G tower or a group of people using their cell phones. But my question to you is, I'm starting to wonder because lately, just recently, and we are in vaccine season now in October, I've been going to the usual groups I go to, my book club, my Bible study, and I'm getting sick every time I'm with these people. I'm coming home and I'm getting sick and sore throats, like flu-like symptoms, terrible headaches and all that. I always blame it on the cell phones because they've got their cell phones all out on the table. But I'm starting to wonder, are these people transmitting whatever's going on in these vaccines to me? And would you recommend really socially isolating to protect ourselves from whatever is happening with these nanobots?
I think you might first ask them all to get somebody who has the app that can show the Bluetooth signals coming off of bodies of people who took either the arm or the nose to brain shot, or who lived with those who did, and see what's going on with that, and ask them, please, start your detox from that if it's at all possible. And then, if several of them have that, maybe you don't want to be around them, maybe you could do something virtually, but of course it's important that we all socialize as well. It's hard not to. But obviously if you're feeling ill from just doing whatever it is that you're doing, it could be also the pesticides in the library or whatever, right? Which are horrific, and some of them are like the low odor, right? Like low odor door span, right? They call it lorspan. It's a persistent organophosphate, right? So you don't know what else you're being exposed to there, but follow your body's guidance, right? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I don't know if Thomas has an answer as well, but if not, I'll move on to Mark. Mark, you're next with a question.
Okay, I just wondered if there's any way of estimating how many of the vaccines might be placebo. I'm convinced they've been mixing placebo in with vaccines for probably decades. And then a second question is, there are these morticians who find blood clots with all these horrible ingredients, the graphene and the venom. Has anybody heard about, analyzing the blood clots that the morticians are finding?
Well, yes, there has been someone who's been analyzing them. He was a guest speaker on one of our Zoom meetings, brainstorming sessions here. I don't remember his name. Maybe Thomas, was it actually you that I'm thinking of, or who was analyzing some of those, or was it another guest?
It was another guest.
Oh, okay. Well, in any event, there are people who are doing it, at least one person who's doing it. One thing Susan, I don't know if you wanted to respond to that or not.
That's all right. I did want to respond to the comment that's going on in the chat. Simultaneously, we've got these multiple conversations, which is wonderful. Thomas, is there such a thing as a true placebo or a true saline? Because many of the saline bags in hospitals now have been found to contain graphene or benzene.
Is there a true placebo, like only saline water in the vial? I don't have 100% evidence for that. I would imagine that there was a hell of a lot of that. There's been so many whistleblowers that have come out and said that that's a route. Even pediatricians have said that they were even told. Many have come out on video and said for the first year and a half of the childhood vaccine schedule, it's all placebo to get the parents, the mother, used to doing this, so that then she doesn't suspect anything, so that then they get the real ones later on. There's been videos of that. The mainstream media came out exposing, reporting on massive sections of saline batches and doses in like 11 different states. Those articles, I still have those articles saved in my computer. I'm not sure if you'd be able to dig them up online or not. Probably. The mainstream media didn't even go back and delete those. People should, if they dig enough, they'll be able to find it. Right? There's been doctors who used saline, many of them even arrested, still court cases and whatnot. One just recently pardoned, not pardoned, but the case dropped at the foot of the congressional steps. So was there anything in there other than saline? I don't have evidence for that, but I imagine there's no way they were able to ramp up capacity for 8 billion people and many, many, many doses that quickly without a hell of a lot of saline all over the world to just fake it and get people, to play along with the program and enslaved by this so that they can catch up with manufacturing and finally give the real doses, right, as they're sending out these different batches. But there was a hell of a lot of saline, and they're never going to give, full dose to everybody unless, right, one country, they just wipe them out because the damage is so severe. Remember in the beginning when they first gave the injections, what was happening? Everybody falling over, right, convulsing, foaming at the mouth, and in these massive seizures, and everybody freaking out. There's nothing that will stop this faster than if they have too many real doses or too much of it dialed up, and then people become aware. They don't want that. They need to give, a small damage rate so that everybody is talking as they do here locally where I am. Well, all my friends got it, and but none of them have a problem, and then boom, their grandma falls over dead, right? This is what they're doing, folks.
Exactly.
I have a friend who was a hospital administrator during the H1N1 debacle, black operation back in 2009-10, and he unknowingly to everyone delivered saline only to all the employees who were required to get that injection. So yes, that does happen.
There was some European nurse who said there were 3 different batch classifications, and then there's a website, How Bad Was My Batch? I think where they verified that some batches were just wildly disproportionately harmful.
Yeah, in that case, in both the European batch study and also the US batch studies, they were all harmful, right? There was nothing that was pure placebo found, right? But yes, they were at different levels, right? And in the US, we know that there were more harmful batches sent to the red states than the blue states and so forth. So, but you know, there are people doing great toxicology on that who are looking and finding, for example, they say 15 billion approximately pieces of graphene in each vial. So we need to know just what's in there. They're finding shards of glass and metal, finding much more tin than aluminum or whatever. It's just lipid nanoparticles. It's just bizarre, the kinds of horrific materials that are in these vials that are falsely called vax.
You know, before I want to loop back to this detox thing because it's so important. And I don't know if Matt Warnock is still with us, but he has a lot of experience with herbal detox remedies and the like. Matt, if you're still with us, maybe you could weigh in on herbal components of detoxing from COVID-19 clot shots. Let's see if
Actually, I don't know of herbal remedies for the clot shot per se. I have a lot more experience with lead detox and heavy metals and stuff like that. Cilantro obviously is great. There are other herbal remedies for those kinds of things, but that's kind of off topic of what we've been talking about. Um, if there are herbal remedies for it, I'm not immediately aware of them, but would love to hear about if anybody else is aware.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I'm sorry to have put you on the spot like that unannounced, but it seemed logical to ask you about that in light of
Not
your expertise in herbals.
not a problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? We're getting really to the end of our 2 hours. How long have we been at this? So let me turn it over to Charles Frohman to wrap this up. And I want to remind people again, please join the National Health Federation if you aren't already a member. It helps support our activities here. And just stay in touch. There's a lot going on. There will be a lot more that'll be happening in the future as they try to clamp down on us with all these anti-human and anti-humanity actions that are going down. It's really amazing. I mean, if I were, you know, very much science fiction oriented in this, I would say, boy, they're trying to clear the planet of humanity to make way for another race because they don't want the human race here. Okay, Charles, your turn.
Yeah, I think the pandemic, more than anything, opened people's minds to consider how nefarious the actions are of the globalists behind this depopulation and digital prison, as Susan taught me to say long ago when we lobbied against the wireless mesh, and we're still doing that. So in chat, you see the links to become a member, to get your friends to sign up for the e-list, to join me in Cleveland at the MAHA conference. If you're there, I'll be there speaking about NHF's work more closely with the MAHA recommendations, folks. So sometimes we'll take a glass half full approach to get to where we need to go with your expertise, Thomas and Susan. We're always pushing the envelope here on our monthly gathering. Let's have from each of you a last thought, Susan and Thomas, and how folks can reach you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone here and love you, Thomas. About you. We need to avoid electromagnetic radiation as well. We haven't talked much about that, but wire your internet. Make sure you're using Ethernet cable at least. Turn it off by night if you've got Wi-Fi, any wireless, and please try not to use a cell phone if you can avoid it. So yeah, I'm just going to give my phone number if anyone would like to reach me. It's a landline, no texts, 321-250-3282. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah,
Thomas,
no,
I think your contact information in the chat line as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just remind everybody, if anybody's doing video cast or podcast or whatnot, I'm happy to come on and teach. And I do this work for free, right, to save humanity. If we don't do it, we're not going to have a humanity left. So we all need to pitch in. So thank you to everybody doing this. Thank you to the National Health Federation, Charles and Scott. Everybody, please help these guys. And if you have patients, please refer to these guys. They also have innovative insurance alternatives as well that everybody here should check out if you're not familiar with that. If you need doctors' referrals, please get in touch with these guys. Ask them. These guys are your real health people. So ask them and refer them. Right? These are good people. So I just posted again my contacts here. Yeah, my X is at AOE, like Alpha Omega Energy, then VC Breakthrough, like Venture Capital Breakthrough. My Telegram is at AOE, like Alpha Omega Energy, and then Black Swan. You guys can reach me there. And I will do a long presentation of my presentation in the next few days here. Let Charles and Scott know about it. So maybe they want to add that to their National Health Federation channels, going through intricately all of this, where it's not such a rush. And I'm available for anybody's questions to help. And if anybody knows anyone with Lou Gehrig's disease, please reach out as well, as I'm working with several patients, and I'm trying to solve this through our local universities through live demonstrations. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas, for that. And, one last word about our other special guest speaker who appeared, Judy Mikovits, and we want to thank her as well for all that she does. She's a huge favorite of our NHF membership, always welcome. And, in return, she always has kind things like you did, Thomas, just now to say about NHF. So we really appreciate her speaking out at this meeting as well. Okay.
Thank you guys for having me.
Oh,
Thank
gosh.
you,
Thank
everyone.
you,
Thank you,
Thomas.
NHF. Love you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you as always. And everyone else for having participated. And we'll see you next time, November 21st, I hope, when we have the next one of these events.
Great job.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.